This week, so the first question is, when you were out on the campaign trail, how did you convince voters to vote for you?
Well, I didn't necessarily go on trying to convince them. I love talking to people and making those connections, and I wanted to know what they cared about. And I think that really listening to people, asking the questions, and diving into what they care about and what's important to them can really have an impact. But I think also for people who, say, well, I don't have school-age children, or my kids go to private school, what does it matter to me? That's when I would bring in talking points about, realistically, we're educating our future, and this is what we need to look at. And that was also pretty meaningful.
What were some of those things that people said were of concern to them or an issue to them that they would like to see discussed or solved maybe in the school system?
Well, for people that have been watching what has been going on, over the last couple of years, they really felt that there was a lot of arguing and people were wasting money and not really kind of getting down to making progress for kids and focusing on the education. That was probably top three.
Okay. School board elections, now partisan, something I asked you last week. Mm-hmm. You ran as a Democrat. How do you think party politics affected this last election?
I think it affected it in a very big way via funding and just how people sided with stuff. I heard a lot of people say, oh, well, I really like that person or I really like you, but I always vote this way, so that's what I'm going to do, and kind of vice versa. I really wish that that party politics hadn't come into this, or politics in general, because we were already seeing that happening over the last couple of years and through COVID and masks and stuff like that. And that can only be more divisive, and it's really unfortunate because it's not putting the kids first.
Do you feel that public charter schools have a place in Knox County with Knox County funding?
With public funds, no, I don't think they have a place here. My biggest issue with them is that once the charter is agreed upon, they no longer have local oversight. And I hear from a lot of people that they would like to have oversight and control locally and have local government involved and local people involved. And I know that they'll have boards and stuff, but realistically, they would answer to the state.
Next question. Schools and teachers, I see it on the news every day almost, are under scrutiny just about what they teach, from race relations to sexual orientations and things like that. How do you sort out those issues in Knox County schools? Should things like that and social issues be taught in school or maybe left up to parents or guardians?
Well, there's some things, because you're educating children and you're having those conversations, that you can't get around. And kids are curious. That's what we're doing. That's what educators are doing. We're giving them information. I know that, some people say indoctrination and stuff like that, but realistically, teachers are there to help our kids open their minds and seek out knowledge. And kids are going to go towards knowledge. And I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and they work so hard. They're so qualified. They put their whole heart and soul into that job, and I think that they should be respected as the professionals that they are.
Cool. Oh. All right, let's talk coronavirus. It's not over yet.
Yep, nope, it's not.
So where do you stand on protecting students from COVID-19 at schools? Parents and leaders, we hit on that earlier with the differing opinions. What do you want to see happen if we face another massive surge or anything like that?
Well, I think we're in a pretty big surge right now. But realistically, I know that I'm only one part of a board, and we have to work together on the board to make decisions that are for the best for all children, not just a select few children. And I think it's really important to take that into account. I think looking to professionals, medical professionals and organizations is really important. I know currently right now Knox County isn't doing anything, so to speak, or that's what's being posted. But I know that teachers are still cleaning their classrooms, and when I walked my kids into their classrooms on Monday, they were generally spread out, and that made me feel really comfortable about my kids being there. And I know the teachers, they're having the kids wash their hands and do all of those things, and that makes me feel more comfortable as well as a parent.
Do you think something should be done right now in schools against coronavirus? I mean, or would you consider proposing something maybe your first day?
No, I am not a person that's going to go in there like a bull in a china shop. I want to go and I want to meet the other board members and really have a discussion about what we can do that is going to work for all kids. I heard from some parents that the masks for if you have auditory processing disorders or speech issues, that those are an issue, in learning there, but also for kids who have immune issues, not having masks, there's an issue there. And I think realistically, if you look at what was it, the 5 core actions, masks was only one of those. There are a lot of other things that can be done to prevent the spread of disease.
So last thing, Tennessee moving to a new funding mechanism for schools, replacing BEP with Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement, or TISA. How do you feel about the new system, and how can Knox County make this new system work for students?
Well, I really want to dig in there more and figure it out. I think there's a lot of unknown about it. I know a lot of people are worried that, they see, there's this extra funding, but, all the charter school stuff that's been going on, that's been in the news lately, that I know a lot of people are worried that that's where the money is planned to go, and I hope not. I think for me, there are a lot of unknowns. So again, it's just getting in there, figuring out, kind of what the other board members have planned and how we can really make it work for the kids.
Wes, you got anything else? I was going to ask, I guess just school board, it's one of those places that a leader, a constituent or parent turns to your school board member when you have an issue at their schools. I guess what's your message to your particular constituents? What do you want them to know about you and your role?
Yeah, I want them to know that I'm accessible, that if they have an issue, they can come to me. That's one thing that the board should be doing, is really listening to the constituents and seeing the community issues and kind of being transparent about it. I think that's really important.
Transparency, that's another thing.
Yeah.
It kind of does go back to the scrutiny that parents of the schools and parents. Seems like the masking issue and a bunch of other stuff really uncorked something in parents.
Yes.
And now they really want to dig into and have a say in their kids' education. And that can be maybe for good or for ill, because they don't necessarily trust the structures that have been put in place for so long. I guess if you wanted, what would you tell them in terms of transparency and their role?
Well, honestly, this is something that I've already been doing, talking to parents. This is something that I've been doing for years. My son was in early intervention. I don't know if I'm supposed to be sorry. My son was in early intervention, and we really struggled with knowing whether he was going to be able to talk or whether he could hear, and all of these issues. And so that left me as a concerned parent. And so once we had kind of tackled that, then I was able to kind of give back to other parents and talk to other parents about those same issues. And I'm a person that is always willing to ask the dumb question, and I'll put myself out there, and I really found that was really needed and really helpful for other parents to ask those questions and to just be a little bit pushy, and I'm okay to be that person. And I've talked to lots of parents even in the last few months about specifically special needs, more on the special needs side, because that's where I have a little bit more experience. But as far as a parent's other worries, I think in my experience, just asking those questions, sending that email, and and I think that I hope that that's where I can help. You know, if I can point them to the right person to ask that question.
And what I guess special needs navigating that whole system, it's complicated,
Yes,
bordering
absolutely.
on impossible. What
Yes.
did you learn in that process? What do you think do you think something needs to change with the way we handle things?
Yeah, I think one thing that needs to change is that I would love to see Knox County be a little bit more proactive about meeting the needs of students. I know for us, we were told when my son was 3 and he aged out of the early intervention system that essentially he wasn't failing enough to qualify for services between the ages of 3 and 5.5 when he started kindergarten. And that was hard because we couldn't quite afford private services and all of these other testing and stuff like that. So that was very, very difficult. And having someone help and guide me through that would have been really helpful. And even now, having a little bit more guidance and having people be a little bit more proactive, like instead of me having to kind of like ask and push to have this stuff, having them say, hey, we recognize this thing, which they do a little bit. The teachers absolutely, you know, my daughter has some reading issues, and the teachers have absolutely recognized some things, have implemented some phonics, and she is in 5th grade now, and she is excelling, and she loves to read, and I'm very thankful for that. But I think in other areas, they could be more proactive.
Well, that's another thing with TISA, how we're saying it now, is that, you know, there are those module money components for each student.
Yes.
That's going to be, how are we going to figure out, you know, how, I know that the governor says dollar from tax dollar to dollar per kid needs. How do we though chart? That's a lot complicated thing. How do we get there?
I have the same question. I have the same question, really. And I think that having the money follow the students isn't necessarily the best answer, because sometimes having, you know, what is good for one child that you've identified is sometimes good for the whole classroom. Realistically, all children can benefit from certain things, and also benefit from integrated classrooms and having the kids be together and learn those things either in small groups or the whole classroom. But that is definitely something that I'm really interested in digging into and seeing how the funding is actually going to benefit children.
What, you got anything else? I'm good. Anything you want to add?
No.